And so, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amy. I use she, her, and I'm the Caregiver Wellness Coordinator at the Scarborough Center for Healthy Communities. I'm so happy to have you join us today for a great session on retirement homes, what you need to know. We're very excited to be welcoming Phil Norris to our presentation today. Phil is the Manager of Communications and has been with the Retirement Home Regulatory Authority for 3 years. And he is the lead on the RHRI's external communication efforts, partly as they relate to raising awareness to the RHRI's role in ensuring that prospective residents and their loved ones have the tools they need to make informed decisions and protect the safety and well-being of seniors living in the retirement community. And with that, I'm very happy to turn the stage over to Phil.
All right, great. Thank you, Amy. And thank you to everyone who joined today. So I suspect that this won't be a really long presentation. I want to provide a fairly high-level overview of who the RHRA is, what we do, how we can help prospective residents, their loved ones, caregivers, and then how we work to protect retirement home residents once they're in a home, as well as how we help prospective residents, family members, loved ones make informed decisions before they are in a retirement home. So with that, I'm going to share my screen and get started. So RHRA, we are really here to help. Residents are our number one priority. They are at the heart of our mandate. So when it comes to any risk of harm to residents, potential harm to residents, complaints from residents or family members when it comes to their security, their right to live in dignity, and their various other rights under the law, which is the Retirement Homes Act, that's our top priority. Point, like period. That is why we exist. We obviously have, here, I'll move to the next slide here. We obviously have a relationship with a number of different partners. That includes the Ministry for Seniors and Accessibility. So we are a nonprofit regulator. We are mandated by the government to enforce the Retirement Homes Act. However, we are not a government organization. So what we do in a nutshell is that we are the regulator for retirement homes in Ontario, and we license retirement homes, inspect homes, make sure they're complying with the law, take action if we ever have any concerns about how a retirement home is operating. Again, those concerns stem directly from the resident experience. So if there's a problem, if a resident has an issue, we have an issue. We respond to, again, reports of harm or risk of harm to residents. We provide information about the Retirement Homes Act, the different and the regulation to residents, the public, and we obviously work with retirement home operators and licensees to make sure they understand their obligations under the law as well. And then we respond to complaints. So this is a lovely little infographic that gives you in a nutshell how we work. So we inspect homes. We inspect homes. I should actually preface this by saying we are not a very large organization. I was talking to Amy before we got started, and the experience of COVID and the pandemic has really propelled the RHRA forward in a way that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for COVID. And there's a silver lining to this. We learned a lot. We had to move really fast. We had to look back on what we did right, what we didn't do right. But ultimately, we are in a better place now than we were before in terms of knowing what are the most important aspects of our mandate to keep retirement home residents safe. And I think we all are probably going to be on the same page when that just doesn't, that's not just about infection prevention control. That's respecting residents' mental health, their mental well-being. And that is playing into a lot of our thinking as we move forward. And I hope the rest of the world, in terms of how seniors bared an incredible burden during the pandemic, and specifically seniors in retirement homes and long-term care. So we do inspect homes, mandatory report inspections. So when I talk about risk of harm or harm to residents, that's known as a mandatory report. That means that anyone who suspects or knows of potential harm or harm to residents, by law must report it to us. So that includes family members, caregivers, retirement home staff, even other nurses, etc., PSWs. If you see something that doesn't look right, that doesn't sit right with you, there's a reason it's not sitting right, and it's your obligation to let us know so we can look into it. Okay, and that is known as a mandatory report. So the reason I was talking about us not being a very big organization, we have grown a bit over COVID. Again, we are a nonprofit, so we do inspect retirement homes once every 3 years. However, that may not sound like a lot. We have a number of inspectors who are responsible for inspecting over 760 retirement homes across the province. But when it comes to mandatory reports, so risk of harm or harm to residents, we will get on site. An inspector will be at that home as soon as possible to look into those reports. So if there is a home that we have no concerns with, residents are happy, we talk to the licensee or the operator of the home, and we have a feeling that things are going smoothly in that home, those are the homes that get a routine inspection at least once every 3 years. However, there are homes where that is not the case. There's a number of homes where that's not the case. And so that means that we are on site at certain homes much more frequently than every 3 years. And so we're looking into complaints, we're looking at mandatory inspections, and that also includes the routine inspections. So there's some homes where we could be there several times a year. So again, investigating these reports of harms, complaints, we work closely with the Ministry for Seniors and Accessibility. Throughout COVID, we have been communicating to retirement homes the different directives. We've been working as much as possible with the government to provide our perspective in terms of what residents need when it comes to different directives from the Chief Medical Officer of Health. We have working relationships with Advantage Ontario, other seniors advocacy groups, as well as the Ontario Retirement Communities Association. And again, other community partners, and that includes public health, that includes the former LINs, and really it's our inspectors are located in various regions of the province, and so they each have their own group of partners who they will work with if need be. So just in a nutshell, what we do when we receive a complaint, we let the home know that we've received a complaint. I want to just back up for a second. When it comes to mandatory reports, the reports of harm that everyone has an obligation to report, complaints are more, not to diminish their value, but they don't relate to risk of harm to residents. These are more, I would say maybe quality of life. So is the food insufficient? It's a big deal, and we look into every complaint we receive, and if need be, we will send an inspector to the home. But it's not as pressing as a report of harm, so a mandatory report. And you can, as you have an obligation to report harm to residents to RHRA, you can also remain anonymous in doing so. Whereas with complaints, it's not an anonymous process. But when it comes to risk of harm to residents, you can remain anonymous, and you're also protected under the whistleblowing provision of the Retirement Homes Act. So you're protected from retaliation. So I just want to differentiate that and make sure it's very clear that when it comes to mandatory reports, those can be done anonymously. So complaints, we do our best to mediate those concerns. And then, we work with the home, we work with the complainant, and sometimes that's all it takes. There's understanding on the part of the home that they will take action. We'll hold them accountable to that. That may require a little bit of a nudging in the right direction. However, if we don't think that it's possible to mediate that complaint, we do send an inspector out and they will write up a formal inspection report, and then we move it on if needed to our enforcement, to our legal. But we really want to try to nip things in the bud as soon as possible through educating the home, offering compliance support, and giving them that chance to make things right before we go into heavy-handed. We're not afraid, and we will not hesitate, though, if that's what the situation calls for. There is a lot of confusion between long-term care and retirement homes. I'm fairly certain that this group probably knows the difference, but we do on our website have an infographic that looks exactly like this screen. That's very helpful because when we recently did an awareness campaign through Facebook ads. It's a very cost-effective way to reach a ton of people, and there was quite a few comments that were confusing long-term care with retirement homes. So this is an important piece of information to have on our website, because they can be quite different, and they're vastly different in terms of who regulates them, right? So we're not the Ministry of Long-Term Care. We do not have a mandate for overseeing long-term care homes. There are situations where a retirement home and a long-term care home are co-located on the same property. It could even be in the same building. We will take care of the retirement home side of things. And of course, we'll work with our colleagues as needed, particularly when it came to outbreaks on the long-term care side. We would make sure we're working in coordination with the Ministry for Long-Term Care, the Ministry for Accessibilities and Seniors, Public Health, etc. But this is just an important side note that yes, there is a difference. There's certain things that we can't do anything when it comes to long-term care homes. So I know we do tend to get some questions or some complaints about long-term care homes. That's not under our purview. So I'm going to talk about our retirement home database. This is a great resource for anyone searching for a retirement home in Ontario. There are over 760 licensed retirement homes in the province. All retirement homes that meet the definition of a retirement home under the Retirement Homes Act must be licensed by us, the RHRA. The definition is 6 or more residents who tend to be, the majority of whom are over 65 years old, who in the home will make 2 or more care services available. So if those 3 elements are met, and we are made aware that there is a property catering to seniors of that age and that demographic, offering care services, and they have not applied for a license, we will tell them they need to apply for a license, because as soon as a retirement home is licensed, all residents are then protected under the Retirement Homes Act. So it's important that that protection exists for residents of retirement homes. So our retirement home database, you can search, again, all 760 retirement homes are in there. You can search by address, the name. There on our website, there is a map as well. So unfortunately, I didn't include a snapshot of that. But there's a map that you can even zoom in on, and you can move around just like Google Maps. You can filter by the size of the home, small, medium, large. what type of care services they offer. You can also search by license status. So we don't have unlicensed homes in here. However, you could have a home in mind in your area, and or you'd want to make sure that there's no issues with this home if they have surrendered their license, if their license has been terminated or revoked. So when a license is revoked, that is action on behalf of RHRA we have taken because we do not believe that the licensee or operator can properly operate that home without putting residents at risk. It's rare, but it does happen sometimes. When a license is terminated or surrendered, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because a license, when you see a retirement home's license been terminated, what that means is that the owner or the licensee has decided they no longer want to run the retirement home. So maybe they're selling the property and there's no plans to sell it to someone else who wants to run it as a retirement home. So they're going to just terminate their license. If they surrender their license, that is a case where there's a new owner is going to come in and run property as a retirement home. So they've surrendered their license. The new owner will have to apply for a new license, but it's a bit of a different process, because there are plans to really not change much in the home, of course, unless we find issues. So it's just another way to search for retirement homes in your area or the province, or if you have someone you're caring for and they're considering retirement homes in a certain area, you can say, oh, well, this home, their license is terminated, or it's been, so either that home's not going to be operating for much longer, or just a heads up, they're going to change owners. So that's always good to know. We really want to provide as much information as possible, unbiased. We don't work for retirement homes. We work for residents. So all the inspection reports are on the retirement home database, as well as, here's the map. There you go. I'm just going to scroll forward. So this just gives you a visual of what that looks like once you start searching for retirement home. Obviously, there are plenty in Toronto and Southern Ontario. So once you find a home you want to learn a little bit more about, again, you can look at all the care services that they offer. You know the number of suites, as well as whether they have automatic fire sprinklers. And I'm happy to report that this is more of a non-issue, because all licensed retirement homes in Ontario now have automatic fire sprinklers. And I know it's crazy that was not a thing previously. It is now. So you can also look at inspection reports. And this is a big one, because you want to see, okay, so this home had a routine inspection, what was found? And there's plenty of homes, this routine inspection was conducted on this date, and there were no issues with non-compliance. There's some where it says, oh, there was some issues related to the proper storing of medications. So you want to be aware of that. There's some homes where there were repeated issues related to infection prevention and control, storage of medications, issues with cleanliness. That's all contained in the inspection reports. So while, to be fair to the home, they have to make this right. And so if you're looking pretty far back in the inspection reports, there's a good chance that those issues have been dealt with. But it's important to go to the home directly as well, and call them out on it. Say, I have someone who's in my care. They're considering your retirement home. How did you address RHRA's inspection report from 2019 that dealt with cleanliness? Have you made things right? And they'll let you know that they've taken the following action. And then it's really just a matter of holding them accountable, asking when their next routine inspection is or when there could be due for routine inspection. I will say they are unannounced, so homes don't know exactly when, but if, you know, it's been a couple of years since routine inspection, there's a chance that it'll happen pretty soon. So it's really, the inspection reports really give you an idea of anything that could be wrong in the home. And if anytime we find something wrong in the home, we will do compliance monitoring. We'll go back in the home as needed. So sometimes it's an ongoing process. However, it's important to know because it's all about making informed decisions, right? External proceedings, orders, and decisions. This is when enforcement action's been taken. If the RHRA had to put in a compliance order to compel compliance with the law, you know, that's going to be there. Any administrative monetary penalties, that will be there. Of course, if the home's license is going to be revoked, that would be there. So it gives you a good sense of the history of that home. Conditions on licenses, that's something else that we could issue to a home to say, okay, we will issue you a license. However, I'm going to give an example here. The previous licensee, you know, we revoked their license. So one of the conditions on the current license could be that so-and-so could have nothing to do with the operations of the home. So it's really putting protections in place. You know, it's covering our bases to make sure that once we issue that license, we're confident that because of those conditions, no issues will arise. It's helping to kind of safeguard that. Obviously, there is some monitoring of that goes into place. We also have persons with controlling interest. So you know what corporation owns it. There's a name or a corporation attached. There's a phone number. There's a way to directly contact the person controlling interest. We also have important, so you're looking for a retirement home, sorry, you're someone you care for is looking for a retirement home. What questions should you ask? So this is available on our website as well, and I think it's a really great tool to remind. This can happen really fast. We know that we did research previously where start to finish, from considering a retirement home to being in a retirement home, is on average about 3 months. So things move very fast, and retirement homes are private businesses. They want residents in. We know that there are some retirement homes that are not cheap. We know that price is an issue for everyone, no matter what you're looking for or buying or renting, etc. So all these things come into play, and it can be very overwhelming, and it can be hard to really think of what questions you should ask. So this is a great tool. It's printable. You can print it out, or you can open it up on your phone and have it next to you when you're going to do tours of retirement homes. There's tips for finding a retirement home, and then there's also the guide on how to use the retirement home database. So if anything I've said today, and I know this, I'm covering kind of a lot in a short period, there's this guide that gives you, kind of reminds you how to use it and what the different elements of the database mean. And those are available, they're very obvious once you go on to the retirement home database. You can get to it through our website. You can also get to it directly by typing in retirementhomdatabase.ca. So Residence Bill of Rights. This is law. It is the universal rights of every resident living in a retirement home. The resident can enforce that Bill of Rights. This is part of a poster that every retirement home must have in a prominent area in the retirement home, most likely somewhere in the lobby. So in theory, every retirement home resident, every senior living in a retirement home should know about the Residence Bill of Rights. Not everyone will. So as a caregiver, you know, you please know that this is a thing that exists, and this is if there's ever any violation of a resident's rights, you call RHRA and we will take action. I'm just going to open my chat for a second here. I just want to make sure there's no. There are questions. Okay, great.
Yeah, we just had a question that came in, and it was specific, and it might have to do with the Residents' Bill of Rights. But what responsibility does a home currently have to provide booster shots for those who want it?
Right. Okay. So RHRA, we don't have a mandate when it comes to the public health aspect of things. What we will do is communicate the directives of the Chief Medical Officer of Health to retirement home operators and licensees. A retirement home and their local public health unit have to work together. So there's the retirement home operators, licensees obligation to talk to public health. So that's a very simplistic way of putting it, but the minute a retirement home licensee or operator reach out to their local public health unit and say, you know, okay, booster shots are available for seniors, and I know this was a little while ago. How do I get the residents boosted? And public health would work. They would either say, okay, you're a small home, you don't have the resources to do this yourself, a mobile clinic will come. We will send someone to your home. If it's a larger home with a lot more resources, then that's where, like, if they have nurses who are available, et cetera, and there's no issues on the staffing side of things, then the retirement homes could self-administer to residents. So public health would ensure that they have the vaccines for them to administer the shots. So I hope was that helpful? It is the obligation of the retirement home licensing operators to say, okay, how do I get this happening in my home, right? So it's just part of their obligations. Yep.
Sorry, I asked because I know a resident at a home who has repeatedly asked for the booster, and they keep telling him that they don't have any in stock. Whatever that means, they don't have any; they run out.
Okay, so that perplexes me.
He was offered it at one time, and he said he wanted to talk to me first. And so at that time he declined it, and since then he's asked. And maybe there was like a mobile clinic, like you said, that came out, and they're not going to come back for one, perhaps.
So yeah, that's I'm surprised by that. I would happy to, maybe we could talk offline, or you could I work in communications, so I'm not on like the front lines of the RHRA necessarily. I would suggest that you contact us through info@rhra.ca or a 1-800 number, which is going to be at the end of this presentation, and let them know. Because if there's a retirement home resident who wants their booster shot and they're being told I'm sorry, I didn't think that there was a supply issue with vaccines. So I'm scratching my head at that a little bit. That could be an issue, Anita, and I don't want to jump to any conclusions. But make note of how to contact us at the end of this presentation, because that's something that we should know and we could look into. Yeah. Okay, so a couple elements of the Residents' Bill of Rights. So they have a right to know what care services are provided and how much they cost. Any increases in costs, they must be informed ahead of time. They have the right to participate fully in making any decisions when it comes to their care. Right not to be restrained. Afforded privacy and treatment for caring for their needs, and the right to live in a safe and clean environment. There are more than this. This is kind of a high level overview. So it's important that we everyone on this call knows about these rights, because sometimes it's up to us to protect them, right? It's not, there could be, for one reason or another, whether it's just they're not informed or they don't have the capacity to uphold their own rights. It's important to know that this exists and it's the law. And RHRA can do something about this. Move on to the next one. Couple other resources and information we have on our website. As a result of the pandemic, we have a dashboard that lists all of the outbreaks by home. We have statistics in terms of the number of cases in residents in homes, staff members, and other information. So this is another good resource to know if you have someone you're caring for who's considering a certain retirement home and it's an outbreak, then it might be best to hold off as much as possible. But I understand that sometimes that's not possible. So it's all about being informed, right? It's all about just knowing, being transparent about what's happening in these retirement homes. So that's one tool. Once seniors are in a retirement home, they have the right to start a residence council. And so we have a guide on how they can do that. Some residents are very engaged and very active in their communities. And, residence council is a great way to affect change within their retirement home and within their communities as well, and getting other residents engaged as well. Resident Network. The Resident Network is an initiative that the RHRA started to have a more, almost like a residence council, but within our organization. So it's a group of residents who get together to provide input on some of our initiatives, but also let us know what they're seeing and feeling on the ground in the homes. And if there's ever anything that's brought forward that we can do something about, we look into that. If we say, okay, this is what we're going to do about it, how do you feel about this? They have the opportunity to provide feedback. I mentioned we did an awareness campaign. We wanted residents' input on that awareness campaign, especially when it came to the graphics we were using, the visuals, and something that appealed to me is not going to be the same thing that appeals to someone who's 65 years or older necessarily. So they provide insight that the majority of people who work at the RHRA cannot provide insight, because we don't have that lived experience and we don't have that generations of knowledge that they do. And we certainly recognize that. And it's just a great initiative. If ever you have someone who you're caring for, in a retirement home, and say this person's extremely engaged and active, and I'm not just active physically, sure, but mentally, and they're really like to get involved, then certainly the resident network could be a good fit for them. And then each year we recognize resident champions. These are remarkable seniors who live in retirement homes who are doing a lot of what I just mentioned in terms of the resident network, and that is going above and beyond to help out other residents, help out staff even. This could be small but meaningful things that really improve the lives of those around them. And so we like to recognize them each year. And there is, maybe after this, Amy, I can send you a link that you can share for nominations for remarkable seniors. And we recognize them every year at our annual general meeting in September. And then we share their stories on our Twitter account and Facebook. So this is how to connect with us. We are a phone call away at 1-855-ASK-RHRA. Again, info@rhra.ca. Call and let us know. Twitter, we're at RHRA Ontario. We're on Facebook, and we're also on LinkedIn. And I should be completely transparent by saying that we have not been super active on social media lately outside of our awareness campaign. But, we hope to, my fingers are crossed that we're in a good place with outbreaks going down and COVID starting to take a back seat to some of the important work that is unrelated to COVID that the RHRA does and is mandated to do, which includes communicating with people like you through different channels, including social media.
So thank you, Bill, so much. I am now going to stop the recording.